people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that Germany's own unbeaten up-and-comer, Sarah Liegmann, will be returning to action late next month against an opponent that has yet to be announced, campaigning in the featherweight division. That's where Amanda Serrano currently reigns as that division's unified Ring Magazine and lineal champion, and that's where Sky Nicholson could soon become a champion.
It's where Sarah Liegmann campaigns.
Sporting a professional record of 9 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 9 professional bouts. Young Sarah, she flies a lot lower on the radar than some other featherweights. Featherweights like Karis Artingstall of the United Kingdom, Raven Chapman too, and Sky Nicholson of Australia. Perhaps it's because Sarah doesn't have a major promoter behind her the way that they do. She doesn't have a Queensbury, a boxer, a Matchroom to promote her.
But she's good.
How good is the question? Having last seen action in October of last year, she fought 3 times last year and 4 times the year before that. So even though she's flying low on the radar, she is keeping busy. She is staying active, which is what you want from a young up-and-comer, an unbeaten one. So because her quality of competition so far has been largely pedestrian, it's hard to place her. It's hard to know, where does Sarah Liegmann stack up with the other featherweights, the other unbeaten featherweights at this weight, of which there are a few. There's her countrywoman, Sophia Leash. There's Karis Artingstall. There's Raven Chapman. There's Sky Nicholson. Where does Sarah Liegmann fit into that picture? How does she stack up against them?
There's only one way to find out.
The advantage that she has over many of them is that she is younger. She's a younger fighter than Raven Chapman, than Karis, than Sky. She's only 22 years old, so time is on her side a bit more than it's on theirs. Even if her quality of competition isn't that great now, it could be later on, down the line, when she is more experienced.
Don't know who she's going to be fighting next month.
Sarah Liegmann, who has very good dimensions for a featherweight, that one day could see her campaigning as a super featherweight, maybe even a lightweight.
Super lightweight.
She's long and limber, good snap on the jab, good speed on those punches, bad intentions. That's what stands out about Sarah. She's fundamentally sound, and she likes to punch. She likes to throw punches.
Her best punches are her straight punches.
There's a lot of mustard on those shots, though it helps that she's fluid mid-range to inside, that she doesn't mind stringing punches together within close quarters, that she can throw combinations. She's not economic. She's not an outside fighter and a mover like a Sky Nicholson. She's more of a mid-range fighter.
Boxer puncher.
She has the look of a boxer puncher. She has the fundamentals of the pure boxer with the spite of the pressure fighter. Ergo, she's a boxer puncher.
She's good speed, good tight hooks, good snap on the jab.
She looks good. Though how good she really is has yet to be determined because, as stated, her quality of competition has been mostly pedestrian so far. That's saying that Raven Chapman and Sky Nicholson and Karis Artingstall are fighting better fighters and more solid fighters than young Sarah Liegmann is right now. So we don't really know, just based on an eye test, whether or not Sarah is on the level.
Gotta see her against somebody like a Lila Furtado.
Still mitigating the risks, but someone who can push, someone who can push back, someone who can fight back to really get a better idea of where Sarah Liegmann is.
Gotta give Lila the chance to recover. She's lost 2 back-to-back fights to Raven Chapman and Karis Artingstall. But I see your point. She would be a good acid test for Sarah Liegmann.
It's an interesting fighter, set to return to action later on this month against an opponent that has yet to be announced. And when that opponent is announced, we'll talk more about the fight.
As the fight date approaches.
Men's super flyweight news, Kazuto Ioka eyes WBA, WBC unification versus Estrada as mandatory looms versus Scrappy Ramirez, who just so happens to be promoted by Golden Boy. Can they get him to stand down, and can they get the WBA's blessing? Kazuto Ioka plans to revisit past business despite the present task at hand. BoxingScene.com has learned that a request was placed by Ioka through Shisei Promotions with the WBA for permission to pursue a title unification bout versus lineal WBC 115-pound champion Juan Francisco Estrada. The development came just as the deadline approached to work out terms with the WBA's mandatory challenger, John Scrappy Ramirez, for a previously ordered title defense. The request would still have to be approved by the WBA for Ioka to move forward with those plans. Should that occur, the attractive matchup is targeted for July 3rd in Tokyo. A venue was not specified, though it would likely land at the Ioka City General Gymnasium.
Now is a very opportune time to fight Gallo Estrada because he's not getting any younger.
Truth, neither is Kazuto Ioka, so he's got to do this now. A fight between Kazuto Ioka and Juan Francisco Estrada was tabbed for late last year, but talks fell apart because Gallo didn't like the money.
He wanted more.
And I maintained that if he sat out the entire calendar year last year, it couldn't have been because of the abundance of options or the abundance of big offers that he was getting, that he should have got while the getting was good, and he should have did the fight, because inactivity services no one.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that you're playing hard to get when you're hard to want. It's not like there's a whole bunch of big fights out there for you. There's only one or two. There's this fight and a potential Bam Rodriguez fight, but that's about it. You've already been there and done that. With Sorun Visai 2 times, with Chocolatito 3 times.
It's not like you're pursuing Fernando Martinez, one of the only other champions at this weight, reigning IBF champion of Argentina. You're acting like you're too good for what Kazuto's offering you, but what are you offering anyone else?
I mean, even now it seems like whether or not the fight happens is contingent upon what Kazuto's people put up, not Juan Francisco Estrada. So as stated, you're playing hard to get when you're hard to want.
Is he on board?
Traditionally, both sides of an ordered title defense would have to be on board for such an exception to advance. The mandatory challenger in waiting is not keen on standing down. No deal, no step-aside money, Ramirez posted Tuesday evening on X in response to an inquiry from LW Boxing podcast host Lawrence Boog Williams. Run me my mandatory. Here to conquer the division hashtag and the new. Ioka Ramirez was ordered on January 13th, 2 weeks after Ioka made the first defense of the WBA 115-pound title. The 4-division champion won the belt in a 12-round unanimous decision victory over San Antonio's Joshua Franco in their rematch last June.
Now he's got to satisfy Ramirez, but he would rather unify, and I don't blame him. He's already very accomplished. He's a 4-division champion.
The win over Franco came 6 months after the two fought to a majority decision draw in their 2022 New Year's Eve attempted WBA, WBO unification bout, also at the Ioka City General Gymnasium. Ioka had to give up his WBO title to move forward with the Franco rematch.
Yeah, that's because Junto Nakatani was his mandatory challenger.
So Kazuto vacated the WBO title to pursue the WBA title, the one that Franco still had in their rematch, and he won it.
He's WBA super flyweight champion.
And he wants to unify. He tried to unify with Juan Francisco Estrada, this division's WBC champion, last year, but as stated, Juan Francisco Estrada didn't like the money, so those talks collapsed. But Juan hasn't done much of anything since then. In truth, Juan hasn't done much of anything since the Chocolatito fight, the third one.
Is he on board to do this thing? Because he hasn't fought in over a year. The circumstances haven't changed. You'd still be traveling to Tokyo. You'd still have been out a long while. Is Juan on board to do this?
I'm not sure, but what we do know is that there's a mandatory challenger in the queue for Kazuto Ioka, Scrappy Ramirez. Los Angeles' Ramirez became the mandatory challenger after a sensational 4th-round knockout of former Bellator title challenger Ronald Batista last October 21st in Inglewood, California. The home game saw the outspoken 26-year-old contender pick up his third win on the year and his first by knockout since last May. The development now puts Ramirez in line for his first career title fight.
And he doesn't want to stand down.
They'd have to go over his head. They would have to get the WBA's blessing, but in order to do that, they would have to show the WBA that talks for Ioka versus Estrada are moving along, that the fight is close to being finalized, because they're not going to put the mandatory on the back burner for a fight that isn't even being negotiated. You're going to have to show them that negotiations are moving along, they are moving along, and they're close to being done.
Gonna have to improve on that offer to Estrada.
Should an Ioka versus Estrada fight materialize, it would come after Estrada, a two-division champion, completed a non-title fight targeted for early spring. Estrada has not fought since December of 2022 when he defeated former four-division champion Chocolatito via a majority decision in their celebrated rubber match in Glendale, Arizona. For now, the unification bout is dependent upon either Ramirez having a change of heart or a favorable ruling from the WBA, where Ramirez would have to face the winner within a specified period. The only other alternative would be for Ioka to vacate the title and simply challenge for Estrada's lineal WBC crown.
This all sounds very immaterial.
Juan's trying to have a tune-up fight in early spring. If they are going to do the Ioka fight, that would be over the summer months. But if they want to do the fight and they want both titles to be on the line, they have to get the WBA's blessing, because they don't have scrappy Ramirez's blessing. So I'm not sure how this is going to go down. I'm not sure what's going to happen, because in order for them to get the WBA's blessing, they have to show them that talks are substantial, they are moving along, and the fight is close to being finalized.
We don't know how close or how not close they are.
To get Juan to play ball, they're going to have to offer him something even more substantial than whatever they offered him late last year. Then if he bites, they can go to the WBA and say, hey, we're close to doing a deal.
We've got to fight.
I don't know. It's too early, and it all sounds very immaterial. I would much rather see Ioka versus Estrada, though I don't mind Ioka versus Ramirez.
If that's what ends up happening.
Seen Scrappy Ramirez. He's all right. Aggressive guy, combination puncher. But Ioka's not a guy that you want to just stand in front of throwing combinations. He's an excellent counter puncher.
Ask Kosei Tanaka.
So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what shakes out. Is it going to be Ioka versus Estrada or Ioka versus Ramirez? And finally, in men's lightweight news, Bob Arum expects Shakur Stevenson to fight an opponent to be determined in June and stay with Top Rank long term.
If he knows what's good for him.
I talked to Prince and Antonio after the fight on Thursday night. Shakur's gonna fight in June, and we've got to figure out an opponent for him.
Stevenson owns a WBC lightweight title, but finding a high-profile opponent for Stevenson's next match might prove to be difficult. Two of the three top 135-pound contenders Top Rank has under contract, Ukraine's Vasyl Lomachenko and Australia's George Kambosos, are fighting each other for the vacant IBF title in May.
And Manuel Navarrete is set to move up to lightweight to take on the Ukraine's Denis Berinchyk for the WBO.
Shakur's got the WBC, and Gervonta Davis is on a completely different side of the street. He's got the WBA. Shakur's not having any luck with Gervonta. The other two champions are otherwise preoccupied, but if you sit tight and you stay put, maybe you can get one of them, because you're still a part of that picture, you're still a part of that scene, and so long as you're in bed with Top Rank,
that gives them a reason to make you a priority. Shakur's been talking a lot about free agency and how his Top Rank deal is set to be up this year. If you try to go somewhere else,
that puts distance between you and those fighters. That puts distance between you and the winner of Lomachenko versus Kambosos, and you and the winner of Navarrete versus Berinchyk. Top Rank has promoted Stevenson throughout his 7-year, 21-fight professional career, which the Newark, New Jersey native launched after he won a silver medal at the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Stevenson has won world titles in the 126-pound, 130-pound, and the 135-pound divisions, and established himself as a top 10 fighter on most credible pound-for-pound lists. The skillful southpaw hurt his marquee value, however, by employing a very cautious strategy against Dominican southpaw Edwin De Los Santos. In a 12-round, 135-pound title fight, he won by UD last November at the T-Mobile Arena.
We've talked about that.
I think that Shakur had to fight the fight he did because I think he had some injuries, that kind of thing. I mean, I know we had him visiting doctors in the weeks before the fight for various ailments, so I think he therefore fought a very cautious fight, but it was a stinker, it was a snoozer, and particularly after the fight before, which was one of the best fights of the year.
He's talking about the Emmanuel Navarrete versus Robson Conceição fight, a shootout between both fighters, an action fight, a very entertaining fight, which served as the lead-in to Stevenson versus De Los Santos. Arum now says that he's spoken to Shakur Stevenson's people, and he is confident that young Shakur will stay on board, stay the course, and stay with Top Rank. And if he knows what's good for him, he will, because the PBC ain't got much to offer him at 135 pounds if he's thinking about going there. They don't have much to offer him in terms of fighters, and they don't have much to offer him in terms of fight dates. And if he's thinking that they will pay him $3 million per fight, the same way that Top Rank has been paying him that, he's got another thing coming.
They're not.
In terms of potentially going to Matchroom, well, Matchroom may have fight dates, but what they don't have are light weights. They don't have any options for Shakur Stevenson now. Maybe if he were trying to go up to 140, they seem to have a lot to offer up there at 140, but not at 135.
And he's campaigning at 135. He holds the WBC title at 135. So if he's going to stay there, campaign there, he should stay with Top Rank.
What about Golden Boy?
Golden Boy? What the fuck would Golden Boy have to offer him?
Well, don't they have William Zepeda?
And what else?
You don't cross the street from Top Rank over to Golden Boy for a William Zepeda fight. Not when Top Rank has Lomachenko and Cambosos and Navarrete. I mean, come on.
Where's your common sense?
Previous videos, we talked about what's really behind Shakur Stevenson's claim that he is now retired at the time when he says that he's set to be a free agent very soon, a network and promotional free agent, free to go wherever he wants to go. We postulated in reference to all of that, though I get the sense that Bob Arum has talked to Shakur Stevenson's people, talked some sense into them so that they can in turn talk some sense into him.
People aren't stupid. They get paid when Shakur gets paid, and if they want to keep getting paid, they've got to keep Shakur on Top Rank because nobody else has much to offer him.
Free agency isn't all it's cracked up to be, and it doesn't work out for everybody the same way. He may be looking at what Devin is doing, bouncing from Matchroom over to Top Rank, back over to Matchroom, and he might want to try that himself, but Devin's up there at 140. You're at 135.
It's a different situation.
Of course, situation is completely different. Some of the biggest names at your weight are right there where you already are. If you leave, you're shooting yourself in the foot, my friend. Free agency works best if you're in high demand, which young Shakur is not. Not right now, not behind that fucking performance.
Not trying to knock him or kick him when he's down. I'm just saying that now's not a good time to try out free agency.
Silver lining is I think his people have already talked some sense into him, given him the lay of the land, told him why he needs to stay where he is.
Because it affects them just as much as it affects him.